The Minnesota Vikings have been getting absolutely busy this offseason and have made move after move, and this team has a lot of potential going into 2024. Now, the Minnesota Vikings lost guys like Kirko Chains to the Atlanta Falcons and Danielle Hunter to the Houston Texans. Both guys were huge starters for the Minnesota Vikings for many years. But they also made moves, one of them being Jonathan Gennard, signing him to a 4-year, $76 million contract. One of the better younger pass rushers in the league at only 26 years old, and he played phenomenal for the Houston Texans last year. Then they signed Andrew Van Ginkel, a very underrated outside linebacker and a very underrated pass rusher, to a 2-year, $20 million contract, which is very, very good for the Minnesota Vikings. Then they also signed Blake Cashman, a very solid linebacker, and he had a great year last year for the Houston Texans, to a 3-year, $22.5 million contract. And then they signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year, $10 million deal. I don't think he will be the starter. He'll probably play for a couple of weeks, but I do think he'll just be the veteran, the backup, a mentor for whoever they draft, in this draft class at the quarterback position. And then the Minnesota Vikings made a signing which broke my heart, but was ultimately a really great signing for the Minnesota Vikings. They signed Aaron Jones to a 1-year, $7 million deal. And this is a great signing for the Minnesota Vikings. They get a great running back when he's on the field, when he's healthy, is one of the best running backs. And he has something to prove this year, and I think he's going to be very good for the Minnesota Vikings. But by far, the best move they have made to this point is making a trade with the Houston Texans, giving up pick 42, 188 in a future second-round pick in 2025, and receiving pick 23 in the first-round draft of this year's draft, and pick 232. What's going on, everybody? Sports culture, and today we're going to be doing a mock draft for the Minnesota Vikings. As you see, we're in the PFF mock draft simulator, and the Minnesota Vikings now have the draft capital to move up to pick 3 with the New England Patriots and select one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft class, whether that's Jayden Daniels or Drake May, whoever falls to us. And I do think the trade will be similar, to what the 49ers gave up a couple years back for Trey Lance. 3 first-round picks right here, as you see, pick 11, 23, and a future first in 2025. In return, we're going to get pick 3. And I do think the Minnesota Vikings will probably get another pick back besides pick 3. Just we don't necessarily know what it will be yet. So I just gave them a 2025 4th-round pick just for the hell of it. So let's get right into the mock draft, and let's see who we draft at pick 3. So here we are at pick 3, and we're going with Caleb Williams. Why is he on the board? So now here we are at pick 3. Now that we refreshed the PFF mock simulator, I don't know how Caleb Williams fell to pick 3 that last time, but this is the most probable and what's probably going to happen on draft night. Jayden Daniels, pick 3, Vikings trade up, or trade up, even before the draft day, who knows, and select Jayden Daniels. I think this is the most probable. I think Drake May would probably be the better scheme fit for this offensive scheme, for the Minnesota Vikings. They love attacking the middle of the field. And Drake May is one of the best or the best, quarterback in this draft class at attacking the middle of the field. So he would have been excellent in this offensive scheme for Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. But with this pick right here, we get a quarterback that has a shit ton of upside. It might just have more upside than Drake May because of his running ability. I do think Jayden Daniels is a really impressive thrower of the football. He is easily one of the better, deep throwers in this draft class, especially outside the numbers. Isn't the best in between the numbers, and definitely isn't the best around the middle of the field. But I think with Kevin O'Connell's offensive scheme, the way Kevin O'Connell is such a great offensive mind, he will definitely be able to use Jayden Daniels' athleticism, his throwing abilities, and make this offense really, really explosive. I just think of, Jayden Daniels, Aaron Jones in the backfield. Then you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then you got TJ Hockenson at tight end. I mean, this offense just sounds super, super explosive. And then you throw in Jayden Daniels' running ability, and that's just another element to this offense that, this Minnesota Vikings offense has never really had, So with this pick at pick 3, we are going to go Jayden Daniels. He's in, the most perfect of prospects by any means. Definitely doesn't have the biggest of frames, for a quarterback. And you would definitely love for him to not, take some of the hits he does. But with this pick at pick 3, we are going to go Jayden Daniels. There's a shit ton of upside because of his running ability. And Jayden Daniels' ability to extend plays, make something happen when nothing's there, is definitely a reason why he definitely has a high ceiling. And why I think in Kevin O'Connell's, offensive scheme and just Kevin O'Connell being, the head coach in general, I think he will actually excel really, really well. But like I said, Jayden Daniels, outside the numbers, he is easily one of the better throwers deep down the field outside the numbers. Watch that dime to Brian Thomas Jr. on the slot fade. Then watch this throw right here to Brian Thomas Jr. again. Watch the ball placement on this one. Perfectly right where it needs to be, right to his wide receiver, where only the wide receiver has a chance to make a play on it. So here we are, pick 1 away, and the Minnesota Vikings have a lot of solid cornerbacks. Nothing really too spectacular. Brian Murphy's there. Then you got guys like Caleb Evans, Andrew Booth Jr., and Mekhi Blackman. But with this pick, we're going to go with another cornerback. I definitely think the Minnesota Vikings can definitely upgrade over one of those guys. So with this pick, we could either go with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who honestly is a very good cornerback as well. But there's a guy on here that I think is just going to be a really good lockdown cornerback in the NFL. He reminds me a lot like Jalen Johnson. That player is Cam Hart, cornerback for Notre Dame. He has great size for the cornerback position, and he's a lockdown cornerback, like I said. 6'2", 207, has phenomenal size. His coverage grade this year is an 84.2, run defense grade of 73.2, completion percentage of a 53.6, man coverage grade of an 81.0, zone coverage grade of a 73.9. And this year, Cam Hart only allowed 137 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns, and a 67.1 passer rating, which is very good. And this guy with the size obviously is going to line up on that boundary, and I think that's a great fit. Having him on the other side of Brian Murphy, I think this guy could be a really good lockdown corner in the NFL. He reminds me a lot like Jalen Johnson coming out of college. I do think this guy is very underrated. For a guy at 6'2", 207, he's very fluid in his hips and can move very, very well, and that's a great trait for a cornerback in the NFL. He's a very physical man cornerback, but he's very good in zone coverage as well. I just like Cam Hart a lot. I think he's going to be a very good steal for one of these teams later on in the draft. So at this pick, I pick one away. We are going to go Cam Hart. The Minnesota Vikings could definitely, find an upgrade over one of those guys in that cornerback room. So with this pick, I went away. Cam Hart is a Minnesota Viking. Okay, Minnesota fans, hear me out. I know you guys just signed Aaron Jones to a one-year deal. But outside of that, you don't know if you're going to bring him back the next year. I mean, it's more like a one-year prove deal. I do think Aaron Jones is going to play very, very well. But with this pick, we're going to go Trey Benson. I don't know how he's still on the board right here, but Trey Benson has a lot of upside. This is a guy with great size at the running back position at 6'1", 216, who ran a fantastic 40-yard dash at the combine, a 4.34, which puts him in comparison to running backs such as Breece Hall. So we could get a guy like Breece Hall, in the Minnesota Vikings backfield, pair him with Aaron Jones, let him learn a thing or two from Aaron Jones for a year, then let Trey Benson be the franchise running back after that. I think that is a great pickup. So at this pick at 129, we are going to go Trey Benson. 21 years old, very, very young. This guy is very explosive for a bigger running back, and he has great power as well. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down. He's very physical. He has great vision, great patience. There is a lot to like about him. Like I said, he's a bigger running back, so he's a bit stiff, when changing direction and stopping on a dime, but you don't really expect him to as a bigger running back. Like I said, though, this guy really does have breakaway speed. He could take what is a handoff out the 5-yard line and turn it to a home run hitter for a 95-yard touchdown. I really do believe that. Like I said, he's in comparison to guys such as Breece Hall. So if he could be anything like Breece Hall for this Minnesota Vikings team, that is phenomenal. So with this pick, we are going to go Trey Benson and build, a really good running back tandem with Trey Benson and Aaron Jones. So here we are at pick 157. We have TJ Hockenson obviously on the team. And I really want to go with Xavier Thomas right here. But man, I was just sitting right here and I was thinking about this. 2 tight end sets with TJ Hockenson and a great athlete like Theo Johnson with Jayden Daniels and Aaron Jones in the backfield is going to be hard for defenses to stop, honestly. Theo Johnson had one of the best showings by a tight end of all time at the combine. This guy's a super athlete at the tight end position. A very, very good blocker as well at the tight end position. A solid receiving tight end. Not someone who's too crazy vertically. But the way he scored at the combine, I do think, Kevin O'Connell with this guy's athleticism could probably find a way to use him, in the receiving game. Like I said, Theo Johnson is a really good tight end blocking-wise. And I just love the idea of having TJ Hockenson and Theo Johnson, 2 tight end sets with Jayden Daniels and Aaron Jones in the backfield. That sounds super dynamic, and that sounds super hard for defenses to stop. So with this pick on 157, we are going to go Theo Johnson. So here we are at pick 167. We are going to go down the board just a little bit. I'm going to go with a tackle for North Dakota State, Jalen Sandell. Now, he did play tackle this year for North Dakota State, but in previous years has actually played center. So there is versatility with him. Like I said, as you see right here, this year 865 snaps at left tackle. The previous year has played center, and the previous year before that has played center. So there is versatility. I do think this is a guy who also could play guard if needed to. And me personally, I value offensive linemen that are very versatile and can play everyone on the offensive line. And Jalen Sandell, I do think is a guy that can do so. He's a very good pass blocker, 89.2 pass block grade this year, a 77.9 zone grade, 74.0 gap grade, 78.0 run block grade, and a true pass set pass block grade of 89.7. So very, very good. His only knock is that he played at North Dakota State, which doesn't play the best talent week in and week out. But when you watch Jalen Sandell on film, he's very dominant, and that's what you want to see from someone playing against lesser talent on a week-to-week basis. So with this pick at 167, we are going down the board just a little bit, and we'll go with Jalen Sandell, tackle for North Dakota State, who I personally really, really do like a lot in this draft. So we did trade back basically 20 picks with the LA Rams. Traded them 177, in return getting 196 and 209. The players I did want to draft aren't going until way later, so we're just going to trade back, get some more draft capital, and just reload, get some more depth all around. So here we are, pick 196, and the Minnesota Vikings just need to add more people on the defensive line. So with this pick, we're going Brennan Jackson. I do think this guy is honestly very underrated, and he could be a diamond in the rough for one of these teams later on. This guy honestly has great production from Washington State, and he's a very good run defender and pass rusher as well. Very good at using his hands, very good at setting the edge, very quick at getting to the edge, and he has great size at 6'4", 264. There is a lot to like about him, like I said. Very solid all around. He had a 76.6 pass rush grade this year, a 78.2 run defense grade, a 74.2 true pass set pass rush grade. So, like I said, very solid pass rush wise and very solid run defense wise. Had a pass rush win rate of 11.8%, very solid, and a run stop rate of 4.9. He had 9 sacks this year, 5 hits, 26 hurries, and 3 batted passes. The previous year, he had 7 sacks, 7 hits, 31 hurries, and 2 batted passes. In the previous year before that, 4 sacks, 4 hits, 23 hurries, and 2 batted passes. Now, the one thing that definitely stands out about Brennan Jackson's stats is he gets pressure. 26 hurries, 31 hurries, and 23 hurries is pretty solid for an edge rusher. So with this pick, we are going to go Brennan Jackson. And we're just going to beef up, the Minnesota Vikings defensive line even more. I just think they need to get more guys on the D line. Need to be quicker, need to be physical, need to be faster. So with this pick, we are going with Brennan Jackson. So we are trading back just a little bit. We're going from 209 to 221, and we're also picking up 227, just a little bit more draft capital because I do think there's some solid players at the end of this draft class and some guys that could definitely play, some solid snaps for some teams. So here we are at pick 221, and we're going to go with Keith Randolph Jr. Like I said, the Minnesota Vikings just need people on the defensive line. And if this would have been last year's draft and Keith Randolph Jr. was able to go into last year's draft, he would have been picked way higher. He had a tremendous year last year. This year wasn't the same case. As you see, last year he had a 79.0 PFF grade. He had 4 sacks, 2 hits, and 26 hurries. Compared to this year, 3 sacks, 2 hits, 8 hurries, 1 batted pass. So definitely would have loved to see him, have that same production he did in 2022. But with this pick, we're just banking on him getting back to what that form was in 2022. This year, he had a pass rush win rate of a 9.3, run defense grade of a 62.3. He's not the greatest at the run, but he does use his hands very good for a defensive lineman. Pass rush grade of a 67.4, true pass set pass rush grade 70.0, and a run stop rate of a 5.0, which is average. Keith Randolph Jr. has great size for the defensive line position at 6'5", 305, and he's awfully pretty quick for a guy at that size. So with this pick at 221, we are going to go Keith Randolph Jr., and I do think he's a solid pick, and a solid scheme fit for this Brian Flores defensive scheme. And he could probably, who knows, be the second, nose tackle behind Harrison Phillips. So with this pick at 221, we are going Keith Randolph Jr. So with this pick, we're just going to get more depth at the linebacker position. And we're going with Darius Moasu, linebacker out of UCLA. On the roster for the Minnesota Vikings at linebacker, obviously they got Blake Cashman through free agency. But outside of that, they got Ivan Pace Jr., who is absolutely a dog for a shorter linebacker of 5'10". But outside that, there's not too much. So it's a good thing to have depth at the linebacker position, just in case guys get banged up. Like I said, outside of Ivan Pace Jr., Blake Cashman, there's not that much. And I think Darius Moasu is actually a pretty solid linebacker, and he was for UCLA. This year, Darius Moasu had a run defense grade of a 74.3, a coverage grade of an 85.7, and an average depth run tackle of a 2.1, which is very phenomenal. That is elite. That's what you want to see when you're looking at a linebacker. Missed tackle rate of a 14.1, so very high. Missed tackle rate of a 14.1%, so very high, honestly. But he had 52 tackles, 21 assisted tackles, and 12 missed, which is not good by any means. The previous year, he had 76 tackles, 25 assisted, and 21 missed. So definitely, if he could learn how to stop missing tackles, he could honestly be a really good, solid linebacker. He is honestly very athletic for a guy at 6'1", 230. It's not a bad thing to have depth at the linebacker position or just any position in general. A lot of guys get banged up, guys get hurt. You need guys that could come in and play snaps for you if needed be. I think Darius Moasu could honestly be a really solid linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings. Just, a depth piece or be a really good special teamer for them. So with this pick, we are going Darius Moasu. I think this guy is honestly a very solid linebacker, and he was for UCLA. So here we are, pick to 30, and we're just going to add more depth to the defensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. Evan Anderson is a guy I really do like a lot from Florida Atlantic. He's just a big body guy that can take on double teams, really good in the run, but he's just a physical, mean presence down there. Evan Anderson has solid size at 6'3", 356. He's just a big body guy, like I said, at 356. And he's a good run stopper. Like I said, this year he had 5 sacks, 1 hit, 12 hurries, and 1 batted pass. He had a pass rush grade of a 70.5, a run defense grade of a 83.7. Like I said, really good against the run. True pass set, pass rush grade of a 72.4. Pass rush win rate of a 7.1%, and then a run stop rate of 8.2%. Like I said, very solid against the run. Shout out to pick 30. Like I said, we're just going to add more depth for the Minnesota Vikings defensive line. Evan Anderson is a guy I really do like a lot in the later rounds. Just a big body guy that could come in, on running situations, shorten yardages, and take on double teams and just be a mean, physical presence down there and stop the run. So with this pick at 230, we are going Evan Anderson. So here we are at pick 233, and as I'm recording this, KJ Osborne has signed with the New England Patriots, so we just need to add depth to the wide receiver room now. And Hayden Hotton is a wide receiver from Idaho who has just been killing it in the Big Sky and has easily been the best wide receiver in the Big Sky division. As you see, this year he had a receiving grade of a 90.6, yards per route of a 2.72, which is phenomenal, drop rate of a 1.1%, which is very elite. contested catch rate of a 46.2, which is average, and a grade versus man coverage of a 66.8, which is okay. This year, Jayden Daniels had 1,235 receiving yards, 13.3 yards per receptions, and a 9 touchdowns. So very, very good. And then the previous year, he had 1,211 yards, 16 touchdowns. So very, very good. He only had 1 drop this year, which is phenomenal. Isn't someone that's going to get a lot of yards at the catch. He doesn't have blazing speeds by any means, but he's just a crafty route runner and someone that's very smart for the wide receiver position. Hayden Hudson at 6'2", 205 has great size for the wide receiver position, and we just need more depth for the wide receiver, room for the Minnesota Vikings now that KJ Osborne has signed with the New England Patriots. I honestly thought he was going to re-sign, with the Minnesota Vikings for a cheap contract later on, in free agency. But it turns out he went to the Patriots. So this pick, was kind of just like a scramble pick. We just need depth. So with this pick at 232, we are going Hayden Hudson, who is a wide receiver who has been killing it in the Big Sky Conference. All right, so here is what PFF has graded my mock draft. Obviously, with the first pick, we went Jayden Daniels at pick 3. We had the trade up with the New England Patriots. They gave us a B for that. I think Jayden Daniels with Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, as the guy calling the plays, I think Jayden Daniels will be set up for success. And I mean, the weapons around Jayden Daniels right now are insane. You got guys like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hockenson. I mean, the weapons are there. Then with our next pick at 108, we went Cam Hart. Just a big physical, cornerback for Notre Dame. Has great size for the position. And like I said, when I picked him, the Minnesota Vikings have a lot of solid cornerbacks, but nothing really special there. And I think Cam Hart could actually be a lockdown cornerback in the NFL. PFF has given us a B- for the Cam Hart pick, which I think is a very solid one right there. I think Cam Hart has a shit ton of potential. Then with our next pick, we went Trey Benson. Like I said, this guy has a lot of potential. He's in comparisons to guys such as Breece Hall just for his big size, the way he weighs, and how fast he ran at the 40-yard dash. He has home run speed. He's very, very explosive, and he has a lot of power. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down. He has phenomenal contact balance, great vision, great patience. For this pick right here, we got an A+, and I know we have Aaron Jones on the Minnesota Vikings for a year, but outside of that year, we don't know if the Minnesota Vikings are going to bring Aaron Jones back. So why not think about the future? We win Jayden Daniels with the first pick, which is already going with the future right there. So why not even think about the future a year ahead with Trey Benson, taking the reins from Aaron Jones after this year. And I think Trey Benson, sitting behind Aaron Jones for a year or two, who knows how long the Vikings will keep Aaron Jones, and just soaking up some gains from one of the better running backs in the league will be very good for a guy like Trey Benson. So with that pick, we got an A+. I think that's a very good pick considering the, upside that a guy like Trey Benson has at the running back position. Then with our next pick at 157, went Theo Johnson. And I was just thinking about this pick when I made it. The 2 tight end sets with him and TJ Hockenson, with Jayden Daniels obviously as the quarterback, Aaron Jones in the backfield, Justin Jefferson at wide receiver, Jordan Addison at the other receiver. Dynamic. I mean, that would be really, really explosive, and I think that would be really beneficial for a guy like Jayden Daniels at the quarterback position. Theo Johnson is just a super athlete at the tight end position. He killed at the combine, and he's a very solid receiving tight end. Nothing too special, but I think in Kevin O'Connell's, scheme, Kevin O'Connell could definitely, find ways to give him the ball because he's just a really fast and athletic, tight end. And then Theo Johnson is also a really good blocking tight end. That's why I went with this pick. He's a really good blocking tight end. So for the Theo Johnson pick right there, we got an A, and I think that's a very solid pick, just considering the fact that he has a ton of upside at the tight end position because of his athleticism. So at 167, we went Jalen Sundell. We got a C for that, and I do think Jalen Sundell is honestly a very good tackle, and he offers a ton of versatility. You can't go wrong with having depth on the offensive line. Like I said, Jalen Sundell offers versatility. This year he played tackle for North Dakota State. Previous years has played center. I just think this is a very solid pick. You just can't go wrong with having depth on the offensive line. Got to see for that. Nothing wrong with that. Then with our next pick at 196, we went Brennan Jackson. I think this guy's honestly going to be a very solid, rotational piece for one of these teams that pick him up. Very good at stopping the run. Very good at getting to the quarterback. Has a great size of 6'4", 264. Honestly, very quick off the edge. Can set the edge very well. Uses his hands very well. Has violent hands. There's a lot to like about him. I think he's going to be, a really good pick towards the later rounds. So for that Brennan Jackson pick, we got a C+ for that. I think that's a very solid pick. He has a ton of upside, and he could just be a really good rotational piece for this Minnesota Vikings team. Then with our next pick at 221, we went Keith Randolph Jr., and we're just hoping, he could get back to that 2022 form. This is a pick that could have some upside, if he gets back to that form. He was very disruptive in 2022, and one of the better defensive linemen, in the country in 2022, was very solid all around. With that pick, we got a B. Very, very solid. You can't go wrong with depth on the defensive line, and the Minnesota Vikings do need that. Then at 227, we went more linebacker depth with Darius Mwasu. And like I said, outside of Ivan Pace Jr., and like I said, when I picked up Darius Mwasu, there's nothing wrong with getting more depth at the linebacker position. Guys always get hurt. Guys get banged up. And outside of Ivan Pace Jr. and Blake Cashman, who they just signed, there's not that much depth there. So that we got to see for that right there. That's not a bad grade. I think it's a really solid pickup. Then at 230, we went Evan Anderson. And like I said, when I picked him up, I think this guy is honestly a very solid, defensive lineman. He's just a big body guy that could come in, take on double teams, could be a physical meat presence for you. I really do think Evan Anderson is going to be a very solid player for one of these teams. Definitely comes in more towards, running situations, short on yardages, takes on double teams, and just stops the run. But got a B plus for the Evan Anderson, pickup right there. That's a very good pickup and a very good grade. Can't complain. They went this last pick in my draft. We went Hayden Hayton. And like I said, when I chose him, KJ Osborne just signed with the Patriots. So we just need more depth and that wide receiver room for the Minnesota Vikings. And this guy has been killing it in the conference, that he was in these last couple of years. Easily been the best, these last 2 years. These last 2 years, actually, has easily been the best in the Big Sky Conference. Not a bad pickup. So got to see for the Hayden Hodson pickup. Not a bad one right there. Just need more depth, in the wide receiver room, especially with KJ Osborne signing with the New England Patriots. So the overall grade PFF has given us is A-, which is very, very solid. I do think this is a very solid draft class right here. A bunch of good talent and a bunch of good players that the Minnesota Vikings are getting right here. Obviously, Jayden Daniels probably be the biggest one right here. He is the franchise quarterback for them now in this mock draft. Then getting a guy like Cam Hart, who I really do like a lot from Notre Dame. I think this guy could be a lockdown cornerback. And he reminds me a lot like Jalen Johnson, which is the cornerback for the Chicago Bears, who's honestly one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. So the Minnesota Vikings could get a lockdown cornerback like that. That's insane value for the 4th round. Then my other favorite pick in this draft was honestly the Evan Anderson pickup. I just think this is a big body guy that could honestly go in there, maybe, who knows, be the second nose tackle behind Harrison Phillips. He's just a big body guy that's very physical, very mean, knows how to use his hands, and knows how to stop the run. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second nose tackle behind Harrison Phillips. So let me know what you guys think about this Minnesota Vikings mock draft right here. I think this is a very solid one right here. Obviously, getting Jayden Daniels to be the franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings in this mock draft is an A+ already. So let me know what you guys think about this mock draft. Like, comment, subscribe. It's been your boy Sports Culture. I'm out.